I want you to imagine, just for a moment, a really complex medical procedure, like an organ transplant.
Okay, transplant.
I'm with you. Right. So a body is failing. It desperately needs a new heart to survive, right? And finally, the surgery is performed.
Which should be the hard part, right? The actual surgery.
Exactly. And the new heart is strong, it's capable, it is pumping life-saving blood right into the system. But the body's immune system starts attacking it anyway.
Ah, yeah. Rejection.
Yes, rejection. And not because the heart is failing to do its job, but simply because the surrounding tissue recognizes it as foreign.
Wow. That's a really powerful way to frame it.
Right. The body would literally rather reject the very thing keeping it alive than accept a fundamental change to its internal environment.
I mean, that is a remarkably apt way to look at organizational dynamics. It really is.
I think so too.
Because we tend to think that if a leader comes in and, fixes a failing system, they will just be embraced.
We assume competence is the ultimate currency.
Right, exactly. But in these deeply entrenched legacy cultures, survival often takes a back seat to the preservation of the old guard's identity.
It's so true. And you listening to this, if you've ever walked into a room, taken a deep breath, and felt that immediate silent rejection from the people in it.
Oh, there's the worst feeling. Just that heavy air.
It really is. If you've ever had to build this fortress of competence around yourself just to survive your workday, well, this deep dive is going to resonate deeply with you today.
Oh, absolutely. Because today we are exploring a narrative space that is incredibly hostile to change.
We really are. We are looking at the analytical breakdowns and excerpts of the 2026 novel In Her Own League.
By Liz Tomford.
Yes, Liz Tomford.
Yeah.
Now, while this sits on the shelf as a sports romance, this part of her Windy City series, the source material reveals that it operates on a much, much more profound level.
It does. It uses the framework of professional baseball to conduct this deeply psychological examination of power.
Yeah, and gender.
Right. It looks at the intense gender biases of the professional sports world, but not merely to critique them.
It maps out the emotional toll, right?
Exactly. It maps out the profound emotional toll they take on the people actually navigating them. It is a story about the intersection of corporate cruelty, grief, and the agonizingly slow process of unlearning hyperindependence.
And that is our mission today, our focus. We want to unpack how this narrative deconstructs that tired, kind of one-dimensional girl boss trope.
I am so glad we are talking about this. That trope is everywhere.
It is, because the reality of being the first woman in a room of powerful men isn't just about, wearing a sharp suit and making ruthless decisions.
It is about the quiet, invisible burdens that come with that.
It's about how true strength might actually be found in balancing that necessary fierce independence with a terrifying amount of vulnerability.
Which requires us to really sit with the discomfort of those hostile environments.
Yes, we have to look at the environment first.
Because to understand why someone builds a wall of ice around themselves, we first have to examine the climate they're standing in, We have to look at the weapons being fired at them daily.
I love how you phrase that. So let's start exactly there. Let's look at the inheritance of our main character, Reese Remington.
Okay, let's dive into Reese.
So she is 35 years old, and she has just made history. She is the very first female owner of a Major League Baseball team, the Windy City Warriors.
First ever.
First ever. She inherits this historic legacy franchise from her grandfather, Arthur. And on paper, it sounds like the ultimate triumph, doesn't it?
It sounds like a dream. She has the title, the team, the billionaire status.
Right, but the reality is that she is stepping into an absolute financial catastrophe. And worse, a deeply toxic, old-school management culture.
It is the definition of a poison chalice.
Yeah.
I mean, she is stepping into a role that has literally never been held by a woman in the entire history of the league. She isn't just taking over a business.
She's intruding.
Exactly. She is intruding on a sacred fraternity. The source material outlines this so brilliantly. She faces immediate, unrelenting skepticism.
And it's not just a vague feeling in the air, is it?
No, it is institutionalized. She faces it from the all-male advisory board, from the sports media interrogating her qualifications, and even from her own staff.
Her own staff views her with suspicion.
Suspicion and outright disdain, yes.
Which goes back to our earlier analogy, right? The organizational immune system is in full revolt. The advisory board is actively placing bets on her failure.
It's horrifying.
And the double standard here is just staggering. The analytical sources note that Reese has to, and I'm actually going to quote the material directly here, she has to work twice as hard and make the club's success twice as noticeable just to be seen as baseline qualified.
Wow. Yeah, that is the insidious nature of being the first in any marginalized category.
And it really is.
Because think about it. If a legacy male owner makes a terrible financial decision, what happens?
The media just calls it a bad business day.
Exactly. The board shrugs it off as a calculated risk that just didn't pan out. But if Reese makes a mistake,
oh, it's over.
it is instantly weaponized. It becomes an indictment of her entire gender's ability to lead. Her margin for error isn't just thin, it's non-existent.
She is carrying the phantom weight of every woman who might ever want a seat at that table.
Beautifully said.
Yes. So the inevitable psychological question here is, how does a person survive that kind of pressure cooker?
Armor.
Exactly. And for Reese, the text describes her physical presentation so vividly, it's highly intentional.
I love the description of her.
Right. She wears this sharp blonde hair cut precisely below her jaw. She wears these tailored charcoal gray pencil skirts, sky-high heels, and she adopts this completely stoic, unreadable mask.
She turns herself into the picture of ruthless corporate efficiency.
She really does. And we have to look at why that specific aesthetic matters in this world.
Well, in a patriarchal structure, femininity is frequently equated with weakness or sentimentality.
Right, so she has to neutralize that.
Exactly. By adopting such a severe, razor-sharp presentation, Reese is attempting to preemptively neutralize the board's assumptions about her.
Yeah.
She is visually signaling, like, I am not soft, I am not pliable.
And she enacts this immediately in her leadership choices as well, doesn't she?
She does. One of her very first acts is firing the legacy team doctor, Dr. Frederick.
Because he's overtly sexist.
Yes. And she replaces him with Dr. Kennedy Rhodes, effectively making Kennedy the first female lead doctor in the league. She sets a definitive, aggressive tone that the old boys club mentality is just dead.
Now, I want to push back on her methodology for a moment, though, because, while firing a sexist doctor is obviously justified, her overall approach is incredibly cold.
It is very transactional.
Right. She views the team through a purely transactional, profit-driven lens. So my question is, isn't she just perpetuating the exact same toxic, cutthroat corporate culture that the men before her built?
That is such a good question.
Is her ruthlessness a genuine character flaw, or are we supposed to view it as an unfortunate necessity?
See, that is the central tension of her character arc. And it's a brilliant deconstruction of the girl boss archetype we talked about earlier.
How so?
Well, society forces women in these environments into an impossible paradox. If they're empathetic and collaborative, they're deemed too soft to lead.
Right, they get walked all over.
So they emulate the most ruthless, transactional traits of male corporate leadership just to survive and gain respect. But once they do that, society pivots and punishes them for being icy or unfeeling.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you literally can't win.
You can't. Reese knows that if she shows even a fraction of hesitation, the men on her advisory board, particularly hostile actors like this man named Scott, will use it to dismantle her authority.
So she has to shut down her humanity in the boardroom.
Exactly. It's not a flaw. It is a meticulously constructed trauma response disguised as a corporate strategy.
That makes perfect sense. The coldness is the only shield they'll actually respect. But the text provides these fascinating contradictions, reminding us of the cost of that shield.
Oh, definitely.
Like the cover image of the book itself, for instance. It shows Reese alongside her manager, Emmett, looking out at the twilight Chicago skyline.
It's a very quiet, contemplative image.
It is. It hints at this deep well of humanity existing just beneath that charcoal gray armor. But keeping that armor on at work inevitably puts her on a collision course with the people who just don't understand why she's wearing it.
Exactly. Because her necessary ruthlessness, which she needs to save the financial life of the franchise, it puts her in direct opposition to the emotional heartbeat of the team itself.
The people on the ground.
Right. She enters an environment that runs on sentiment while she is tasked with saving it using spreadsheets.
Which introduces us to her greatest ideological rival in the building. Emmett Montgomery, or Monty.
Monty, yes. Let's really look at Emmett.
He is a fascinating contrast.
He really is. He is in his mid-40s. He's a beloved former all-star catcher, a physically imposing guy, 6'4", covered in tattoos.
Classic baseball guy.
The ultimate baseball guy. And he is the current field manager for the Warriors. If Reese represents the necessary evolution of rational business metrics, Emmett represents the immovable object of tradition and the human heart.
Right. He views this team not as a roster of expendable assets, but as his literal family.
And their clash is just a masterclass in organizational misunderstanding. It perfectly mirrors the frictions we see in real-world corporate acquisitions.
Or when a founder steps down and a new CEO comes in.
Exactly. You have the legacy culture, which is fiercely protective and relational, clashing with the incoming modernization, which just has to be pragmatic and transactional. They look at the exact same organization and see two entirely different realities.
Completely. To Emmett, Reese is this heartless corporate outsider. She's the suit who comes down from the ivory tower looking at budgets instead of looking the players in the eye.
And to Reese, Emmett is a sentimental, stubborn idealist.
Right, who is completely ignoring the fact that the franchise is hemorrhaging money.
Because her grandfather let the budget run wild for a decade. And this boils over immediately, right on her first day.
The fight over the coaching staff.
Yes. They get into this massive fight. Reese tells Emmett he has to fire a third video coach because the budget absolutely cannot support 3 salaries in that specific role.
And Emmett just flat out refuses.
He operates on a moral economy, not a financial one. He points out to Reese that this video coach, a guy named Nate, was just promoted from the minor leagues.
Oh, that's rough.
Right. Nate just uprooted his life, moved his family to Chicago, and his wife is expecting a baby. To Emmett, you don't fire a man who is about to become a father, regardless of what the spreadsheet says.
He becomes fiercely protective.
He actually tells Reese to dock his own paycheck to cover the guy's salary rather than fire.
I have to challenge Emmett's worldview here, though. I mean, his loyalty is incredibly admirable. It's exactly why his players love him and why he's a great field manager. But isn't it also profoundly naive? You cannot pay a massive roster, manage a stadium, and save a failing billion-dollar franchise with good vibes and blind loyalty.
No, you really can't.
The math eventually has to math, or everyone loses their jobs, including the guy with the pregnant wife.
You're entirely right to challenge it, and the narrative actually recognizes that naivete. Emmett is willfully ignorant of the macroeconomics.
Archie just wants to focus on the game.
He admits later in the text that he deliberately never wanted to know about the back-end business of the club. So long as his players were taken care of, he gets to play the benevolent father figure precisely because someone else is doing the dirty work.
First Arthur, and now Reese, keeping the lights on.
Exactly. But the twist here, the mechanism that fundamentally shifts their dynamic, is that Reese isn't the machine he thinks she is. She actually does care.
She plays the villain to his face, doesn't she? Because she feels that the burden of leadership requires her to absorb his hatred.
It's so tragic.
She looks him in the eye and says, "I'm only paying 2, so it's your choice who goes." It sounds incredibly harsh. It validates every terrible assumption he has about her.
But the reality is entirely different. Behind the scenes, without breathing a word of it to Emmett or taking any credit, Reese leverages her network.
For Nate.
Yes. She secretly arranges for that fired video coach to get a job much closer to his extended family.
Oh, wow.
She absorbs the title of heartless monster to maintain the structural integrity of the budget, but she uses her hidden influence to softly protect the employee.
That is a profound sacrifice of her own reputation for the sake of the organization.
It is.
And this ideological clash, it reaches its absolute boiling point over a player named Harrison Kaiser.
Yes, the Kaiser trade.
This is where the mechanisms of modern sports management really collide with old-school baseball culture. Reese analyzes the roster and the budget, and she makes the executive decision to trade Kaiser.
He is a veteran, but he's incredibly expensive.
Yeah. Very expensive. And trading him frees up the capital necessary to bring up a highly talented, highly anticipated minor league prospect named Milo Jones.
This is a classic Moneyball decision.
Right. For the listener who might not know, Moneyball refers to the analytical, evidence-based approach to assembling a competitive sports team.
It means removing emotion, ignoring the subjective prestige of a veteran player, and looking strictly at the mathematical data to find undervalued talent that yields a higher return on investment.
From a pure data perspective, Reese's move to trade Kaiser is brilliant. It secures the future.
But from a locker room culture perspective, it is sacrilege. Kaiser is a beloved veteran.
And Emmett fiercely opposes it. He fights her out of pure, unadulterated loyalty to a guy who has been bleeding for the team for years.
He goes so far as to actively undermine Reese during an advisory board meeting regarding the trade.
Oh, that's bad.
He essentially tells the board that she's making a catastrophic mistake, which infuriates her because she's already fighting the board tooth and nail, and now her own manager is handing them ammunition.
It creates a massive rift. But then, the narrative gives us a scene that completely shatters Emmett's paradigm.
The gym scene.
Yes, the dimly lit team gym. This is a crucial turning point because it moves the conflict out of the sterile boardroom and into the physical, visceral space of the athletes.
Right.
Reese is in the gym, working out alone. Emmett is in the adjacent connected room, out of sight. The air is already thick with the unspoken tension of their fight over the trade. And then Harrison Kaiser walks in.
He walks in, completely unaware that his manager is within earshot. And he speaks to Reese.
And remember, this is his boss. This is the owner of the franchise.
And he walks up to her, looks at her, and calls her sweetie.
Just awful.
He patronizingly questions the amount of weight she is lifting. He drips with condescension, asking her what she's even doing there on a Friday night, essentially treating her like a lost tourist who wandered into a sacred masculine sanctuary.
It is the perfect encapsulation of the everyday, insidious sexism that women in power face.
It really is.
We often think of sexism as these massive, overt declarations that a woman is incapable. But more often, it is exactly this. It's 1,000 tiny, patronizing paper cuts.
Yes. It's a veteran player feeling so unconditionally superior to a billionaire owner that he feels comfortable calling her sweetie while critiquing her squat form. It is an effort to shrink her.
And Emmett hears every single word of it.
He hears it all.
He had previously lectured Reese about how baseball is a family, and he accused her of not understanding that because she was an outsider. But as he listens to how a member of his precious family speaks to the woman who signs their checks, the illusion shatters.
He realizes the profound, agonizing isolation she's experiencing every single day.
He realizes that this environment isn't a family for her at all. It is a hostile battlefield.
The psychology of Emmett's realization here is fascinating. He steps in, absolutely furious. He confronts Kaiser and asks Reese if this player has ever spoken to her like that before.
And Reese's reaction is just as telling, right? She stays silent.
She doesn't complain, because she is terrified that if she admits how much it bothers her, Emmett will assume her strategic, data-driven decision to trade Kaiser was actually just an emotional, petty retaliation.
Oh, that is so heartbreaking. She is desperate to be taken seriously as a business strategist, not dismissed as a sensitive woman holding a grudge.
But Emmett, to his immense credit, sees right through the silence. He looks her dead in the eye and says 2 words that change the entire trajectory of their relationship.
Trade him.
Trade him. That is a profoundly shifting moment. Emmett realizes that his assumptions about her coldness were entirely rooted in his own male privilege and his ignorance of what she was silently enduring just to stand in that building.
Once he understands that Reese isn't a heartless corporate machine, but a human being making impossible choices under extreme gendered scrutiny, the adversarial tension just evaporates.
It rapidly evolves into a fiercely protective, deeply profound partnership.
And that transition is where the narrative really starts unmasking their vulnerabilities. The story moves us out of the private confines of the stadium and into these intensely public arenas that force them to rely on each other in new ways.
Like the press conference.
Exactly. Let's examine the press conference in Cleveland.
This scene is vital because it illustrates the external pressures on Reese, the forces outside of her immediate staff.
Yeah.
They're at an away game in Cleveland, and the media calls a joint press conference with Reese and Emmett.
And Emmett walks into it assuming it will be standard sports journalism, right?
Right. Questions about the bullpen, the rotation, the upcoming series. But he very quickly realizes that every single major sports network has descended on this room for one reason only.
The spectacle of a female owner.
It is entirely predatory. A reporter literally bypasses any questions about the team's performance, looks at Emmett, and asks a question to the entire room saying, "A bit different being bossed around by a woman, huh?"
That is just open, brazen mockery.
It is. It's mockery of the power dynamic, designed to humiliate her and emasculate him.
And the text notes that you see the stoic mask crack just a fraction of an inch on Reese's face. It's the exhaustion of fighting the same battle in every single city.
But before Reese even has to summon the energy to defend herself, Emmett completely shuts the room down.
I love this part.
He leans directly into the microphone, his voice dropping an octave, and he says, "The original question was how I feel about working under someone other than Arthur Remington for the first time in my career. It was not, how do I feel about working under a woman? I think you all know I raised a daughter, so don't ever say some stupid shit like that to me again."
It's a great moment, but wait, I have to ask a critical question here.
Go for it.
Doesn't Emmett stepping in to rescue her actually run the risk of undermining her authority?
That's a fair point to bring up.
Like, by fighting her battle for her, doesn't he just signal to the media that the little lady needs a big, strong, revered baseball icon to protect her? Does that actually help her, or does it just reinforce patriarchal dynamics in a different way?
That is a highly sophisticated question, and it's a tightrope that the novel walks very carefully. The difference between allyship and white knighting comes down to leverage.
Leverage.
Yes. Emmett isn't answering a business question on her behalf. He is addressing a behavioral violation. He is taking his immense privilege, his status as a beloved masculine icon of the sport, and he is weaponizing it against the room. He is establishing a boundary that the media won't accept from her, but they have to accept from him. He is making her look weak. He is explicitly demanding that the room treat her with the respect her position commands.
That makes a lot of sense. And we see him utilize this protective leverage again at the MLB Commissioners Conference in New York, don't we?
Yes, we do. And that conference is a brutal setting.
It is the belly of the beast. It's a hotel ballroom filled with an ocean of older, white-haired men in expensive suits, all the other 29 team owners.
And they collectively decide to ice Reese out.
They actively ignore her. They talk over her. They orchestrate this silent psychological warfare to ensure she feels completely alienated.
And to compound that alienation, her ex-husband, Jeremy, is present.
Jeremy.
Jeremy is a deeply manipulative figure who works for the commissioner's office. He's the ghost of her past traumas. During their marriage, he actively tried to steal the team from her.
He's systematically trying to break down her confidence.
Exactly. Telling her that no one would ever respect a woman as the face of a franchise and that she needed to hand the reins over to him. So he shows up at this conference, sees her being ostracized by the old guard, and he essentially gloats.
He is the physical manifestation of her deepest imposter syndrome.
But Emmett is watching this unfold. He's observing her from across the room. He sees the tension in her shoulders. He sees her eyes constantly darting to the exits, which is a classic trauma response.
And he doesn't make a scene, does he?
No, he strides across the room, places a hand on the small of her back, a touch that is perfectly professional but profoundly grounding, and physically maneuvers her away from Jeremy, smoothly telling him that they need to speak privately regarding team business.
He acts as her emotional bouncer.
That's exactly it. He recognizes the panic attack brewing beneath the surface, and he extracts her from the toxicity. He takes her out of the hotel entirely, walks her down the street to a quiet, dimly lit cocktail bar, and he just sits with her.
He asks her to talk to him.
And in that quiet space, away from the boardroom and the cameras, we see her finally pour out the sheer, crushing exhaustion of her existence.
If we look at the mechanics of this relationship, this is the true foundation of their slow burn romance.
Right.
The author, Tom Ford, isn't building a connection based on superficial physical proximity.
Wow.
She's building it on mutual respect and the profound intimacy of witnessing each other's hidden pain.
Which brings us to the emotional centerpiece of the novel, the San Diego hotel room.
Yes. The San Diego sequence. They are on another road trip, and the air conditioning in Reese's hotel room is broken.
It is freezing.
She is shivering in silk pajamas, entirely miserable.
Well,
Finally, unable to sleep, she knocks on Emmett's door down the hall. He lets her in, and because it's the middle of the night and they are exhausted, she ends up sharing his bed simply for warmth.
but she wraps herself tightly in a spare blanket.
Yes, attempting to keep a literal physical barrier between them. And I want to unpack the psychology of that moment.
Let's do it.
Why does she freeze in her own room for hours before asking for help? And why, when she finally does she wrap herself in a separate blanket like a mummy?
Because of her hyper-independence.
Exactly. Because women who exist in a hyper-independent, male-dominated survival mode often view asking for anything, even a blanket, even basic comfort, as a fatal concession of weakness. Her entire life has taught her that vulnerability is a liability.
Precisely. She believes that if she lets her guard down, if she admits she is cold or tired or lonely, she loses her power. But Emmett tells her to ditch the freezing blanket and just get under the covers.
He disarms the corporate defense mechanisms with pure, uncomplicated care.
And as they are lying there in the dark, the quiet safety of the room prompts Reese to ask Emmett about his own past. She asks about his daughter, Miller.
And this is where Emmett reveals the deepest trauma of his life, explaining the origin of his own isolation.
He tells her about Miller's mom, Claire. Emmett was young, in his early 20s, just called up to the major leagues. He met Claire, fell deeply in love, and Claire was a single mother to a 4-year-old girl named Miller.
But tragedy strikes violently and quickly.
Just after Miller turned 5, Claire died of cancer. Because Claire had no extended family, she used her final days to ask Emmett to adopt her daughter.
Think about the magnitude of that choice. This 20-something rising star, at the absolute peak of his physical prime and career trajectory, adopts a kindergartner who has just suffered an unimaginable loss.
And he doesn't just hire nannies and keep playing.
No, he actively steps away from his playing career in the major leagues. He opts to take a much lower-profile job coaching at a local college instead, specifically so he wouldn't have to subject a grieving little girl to the nomadic, chaotic life of a professional athlete.
He bought a quiet lake cabin in Colorado, and he dedicated the next 2 decades of his existence entirely to raising her.
And Reese realizes, as she listens to this story in the dark, that for 20 years, Emmett completely shut down his own romantic life. He buried his own needs.
He tells her, in this incredibly quiet whisper, right before they fall asleep, "I didn't have it in me to move on."
This reveals a massive thematic parallel between the two characters. Look at their emotional landscapes.
It's striking.
Emmett spent 20 years focused solely on his daughter, completely locking away his romantic and emotional needs because of a profound, unresolved grief.
And Reese, on the other hand, spent her entire adult life locking away her emotional needs to survive the viciousness of the boardroom and the psychological warfare of a manipulative marriage.
They are two profoundly lonely people. They have both been entirely isolated by the heavy responsibilities they carry.
And in that dark, quiet hotel room, they finally find a mutual safe space in each other.
But looking at this from a structural, real-world perspective, isn't this an absolute HR nightmare?
Oh, without a doubt.
We are talking about a slow-burn romance, which is a wonderful literary device, but the power dynamics here are incredibly dangerous. She is literally his boss. She is the person who signs his paychecks.
And he is currently in a contract renewal year.
Exactly. Doesn't acting on this connection validate every single sexist argument the board has against her? If the media catches wind that the female owner is sleeping with her field manager, they won't write a poetic article about two lonely souls finding comfort.
No, they will write a vicious headline about a woman who lacks the discipline to keep things professional, and they will claim he is sleeping his way to a better contract.
It is the ultimate systemic trap, and Reese is hyper-aware of the danger.
It is the very reason she constantly tries to re-erect professional boundaries after these moments of intimacy. She tells herself she has to stay away from him because she refuses to give this male-dominated industry a single piece of ammunition to call her a failure.
She feels the crushing weight of representation.
She knows that if she fails, the board won't just say, "Reese failed," they will say, "Women fail." She is carrying the future of female leadership on her shoulders.
Which is why she panics later in the timeline. There's a moment where she realizes someone may have seen her leaving Emmett's hotel room in San Diego, and a vague, blind item rumor gets posted online.
The sheer terror of that exposure causes her to completely pull away from him for a week. She reinstates this icy, untouchable boss persona, which is agonizing for both of them.
But the narrative irony here is brilliant. Your exact concern about the power dynamic, the HR nightmare, and the public perception is what forces the story to its absolute boiling point.
Because their private sacred sanctuary, the one place they are allowed to be vulnerable, is weaponized by the old guard.
The system realizes she has a soft spot, and it attacks.
Which brings us to the climax of the corporate storyline: the blackmail and the profound redefinition of female power.
Let's talk about Scott, because he is the catalyst for this explosion.
Scott is a member of the advisory board. He represents a very specific type of modern corporate misogyny. He's younger than the legacy board members, but he is incredibly arrogant and fiercely entitled.
He firmly believes that he should be running the baseball operations, not Reese.
He constantly tries to undermine her authority by calling her Stanford, mocking her MBA, and patronizingly suggesting she stick to the business side behind closed doors while he handles the real baseball decisions.
He is a predator looking for weakness, and he finds his opportunity at a family event. Emmett's daughter, Miller, gets married to the team's pitching coach, Kai.
It is a joyous, beautiful celebration. But someone at the reception takes candid photos.
They capture photos of Reese and Emmett looking very intimate, dancing together, and looking undeniably in love.
And Scott, through his network, gets his hands on these photos.
And he executes a classic corporate extortion play.
He prints the photos out. He walks directly into Reese's office, drops the envelope on her desk, and initiates a high-stakes blackmail. He issues an ultimatum. Reese must step down as president of baseball operations and publicly name him to the role.
If she refuses, he promises to leak the photos to the press. And he knows exactly where to slide the knife. He frames it perfectly to trigger her deepest fears.
He tells her that the media will paint her as a predatory owner who coerced an employee. And worse, he tells her that Emmett will be painted as a manipulative manager who slept his way into a contract extension.
Ensuring Emmett will be lucky to ever work in professional baseball again.
This forces Reese into the ultimate internal crisis. We have to understand the stakes for her. Everything she has ever wanted, her entire life's work, has been about running this team.
It was about honoring her grandfather's legacy and proving to the world that a woman belongs at the head of the table.
But her very first instinct, when faced with Scott's threat, is to surrender. She is entirely prepared to sacrifice her lifelong dream to protect Emmett's reputation and career.
Which is such a massive fundamental shift from the icy, ruthlessly self-preserving woman we met in Chapter 1.
Precisely. And it highlights a core philosophical theme of the book. True strength isn't invincibility. It isn't being an emotionless corporate machine who steps on everyone to stay at the top.
True strength is allowing yourself to care about someone else enough to risk your own empire.
She goes to Emmett and tells him what Scott has done, fully intending to resign the next morning to save him.
And how does Emmett react to this?
He has absolutely no patience for her martyrdom.
I love his reaction.
He is furious, not at her, but for her. He looks at the woman he loves, who is preparing to destroy her own dreams for him, and he delivers this incredibly grounding reality check. He says, "You are a fucking boss, Reese. You don't let other people come in here and make you question that."
Emmett refuses to let her shrink herself to fit into Scott's narrative.
He tells her unequivocally that he does not care if he loses his job, but he will absolutely not let her lose hers to a bully. He demands that she remember who she is and the power she actually wields.
And that empowerment leads directly to arguably the most satisfying, structurally brilliant scene in the entire novel, the boardroom showdown.
This is a masterclass in narrative payoff. Listeners, picture the tension in this room. Reese calls an emergency meeting of the advisory board.
Emmett is sitting in the room next to Ed, an older board member who has quietly supported Reese.
Scott is sitting at the table, leaning back, looking incredibly smug, fully expecting Reese to give a tearful resignation speech and hand him the keys to the kingdom.
But the text notes a shift in her physical presence. Reese stands at the head of the table. She doesn't yell, she doesn't panic. There is this eerie, lethal calm about her.
She looks directly at Scott and says, "We're not voting on anything here."
Scott, arrogant to the end, tries to interrupt and push back, but Reese cuts him off entirely. She reminds them of the fundamental legal reality that they have spent months trying to ignore.
She owns the team.
It's incredible. She looks at these men and says, "You seem to have forgotten who signs your paychecks. You work for me, not the other way around. In this working relationship, there's only one of us that's irreplaceable, and that's me."
It is a breathtaking reclamation of institutional power. She doesn't just reject the blackmail, she scorches the earth. She fires Scott on the spot.
She fires the 3 other hostile board members who have been colluding with him too.
Because Scott breached his fiduciary duty and his contract by attempting to extort the owner, she legally denies him his massive severance package. And in a final strategic move to stabilize the organization, she promotes Ed, one ally, to vice president of baseball operations.
I want to look at the mechanics of this victory because it's not just a dramatic speech, it's a brilliant tactical maneuver.
It is like a chess match.
Exactly. Scott thought he had absolute leverage over her because he assumed she would play by the old rules. Historically, women in power are taught that any misstep in their personal lives, any deviation from pristine professionalism, is a fatal flaw that must be hidden at all costs.
He assumed she would feel immense shame. He assumed she would hide.
But instead, she simply changes the rules of the game.
The brilliant strategic move here is how she recognizes that power isn't just about making decisions. It's about controlling the narrative. Because firing Scott doesn't eliminate the threat of the photos, right? He is angry, he is fired, and he could still leak them to a tabloid.
But she doesn't give him the chance. She beats him to the punch.
She decides that she will not let a trashy tabloid drop a blurry photo with a sensationalized, nasty headline. Instead, she reaches out to a major magazine and sits down for an exclusive interview with a female sports journalist.
The author's choice to specify a female journalist is crucial here, I think.
Oh, it is. Reese deliberately chooses a woman to ensure the story is handled with sociological nuance and empathy, rather than the predatory sensationalism she faced in the press conference.
Right. And in this interview, she publishes a raw, honest, and deeply vulnerable article. She strips away the charcoal gray armor completely.
She talks openly about her experiences as the first female owner, the crushing, silent pressures of the industry, and the profound isolation.
And crucially, she completely owns her relationship with Emmett. She doesn't hide it or apologize for it. She frames him not as a scandalous corporate secret, but as her most trusted sounding board and partner.
She weaponizes her own truth before Scott can use it to destroy her.
By breaking the unwritten patriarchal rules of how a woman in power is supposed to act, by refusing to be ashamed of her humanity, her desires, and her heart, Reese frees herself.
She frees herself from the exhausting burden of proving her worth to the very men who desperately wanted her to fail. It is the ultimate structural and emotional vindication.
Which sets the stage perfectly for the resolution of the story. We move forward in the timeline to her second year as owner, where we see the fruits of both her business acumen and her profound personal growth.
And this is where the narrative ties off its loose ends, validating her early, difficult decisions. Remember that highly controversial Moneyball trade from her first year?
The one where she traded the beloved veteran Harrison Kaiser for the unknown minor league prospect Milo Jones.
Yes. Well, as the second season unfolds, Milo Jones turns out to be exactly the explosive missing puzzle piece the team desperately needed.
So the math was right.
Reese's cold, strategic, mathematical vision pays off brilliantly on the field. Her sharp management, combined with Emmett's relational coaching style and the fiercely loyal team culture they have synthesized together, leads the Windy City Warriors all the way to the World Series.
It is the ultimate, undeniable validation of her professional abilities. But the source material makes it very clear that the real victory of the novel isn't the physical baseball trophy.
No, it's not.
The real victory is the resolution of the core psychological themes. The narrative profoundly demonstrates that holding power and independence does not have to equate to crushing loneliness.
That is the ultimate healing message of the book. For her entire life, Reese believed she had to stand completely alone to be strong. But by the end of the narrative, she is surrounded by this incredible, vibrant, chosen family.
She is Emmett, of course.
But she is also deeply embedded in the lives of his daughter Miller, Miller's husband Kai, and their son Max. She has formed deep bonds with players like Isaiah and colleagues like Dr. Kennedy Rhodes.
She learns that she can be a fierce, ambitious, visionary leader in the boardroom and still allow herself to be loved, held, and supported when she takes off the suit.
And we get to experience that realization in the emotional epilogue. The Warriors win the World Series. The scene is incredibly cinematic.
They're on the field, the crowd is deafening, confetti is raining down, and it is pure euphoric chaos.
Reese runs onto the field, jumps into Emmett's arms amidst the madness, and over the noise of the stadium, she yells at him, "Marry me!"
It's such a perfect encapsulation of her character growth. She still knows exactly what she wants, she is still decisive, and she goes for it without hesitation.
But Emmett, who has evolved to match her energy perfectly, just looks at her, grins, and yells back, "Don't tell me what to do." And he reaches into the back pocket of his baseball pants and pulls out a rem that he's been carrying around for 2 games, beating her to the punch.
It is a beautiful, joyful, romantic culmination. But the true emotional resonance, the thesis statement of the entire novel, lies in Reese's internal monologue at the very end. The analytical sources highlight this specific quote from her.
"I no longer feel the need to prove anything to anyone. The only person I'm going to prove anything to is myself."
That quote is the key to everything. She has finally, completely conquered the imposter syndrome that the patriarchal structure forced upon her from day one.
The external victory, the World Series ring, the media praise, the financial turnaround is wonderful. But the internal victory is the profound peace of knowing she is enough.
She no longer looks to the advisory board, the journalists, or the male-dominated establishment for permission to exist or for validation of her worth. She has validated herself.
When we synthesize all of this, In Her Own League takes the accessible, familiar framework of a sports romance and elevates it into a rigorous masterclass on navigating systemic gender bias. It is a study on healing from deep grief, and it fundamentally redefines what power looks like.
It challenges the reader to look at the structures around them. To go back to your opening metaphor, it challenges us to look at the organ transplants in our own workplaces and ask why the system is rejecting a healthy heart.
Exactly. Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you, our listener, with today.
Let's hear it.
For decades, the modern business world has told women that to survive in leadership, to break through that persistent glass ceiling, they must emulate the archetypal male CEO. They must be ruthless, emotionless, and entirely transactional.
But In Her Own League asks us a much more revolutionary question.
True equality isn't just about women gaining access to the seats of power. It's about changing the very nature of how that power is wielded.
If we stop equating coldness with competence and start viewing empathy, vulnerability, and true partnership as supreme strategic advantages, how might that reshape not just our corporate boardrooms, but the way we value ourselves in our daily lives?
It is a profound question worth sitting with.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. I encourage you to reflect on your own environments. Where might you be hiding your own softness just to survive a tough workday? Remember, the organizational structure might be ancient, and the legacy crew might be actively betting against you, but you do not have to patch a sinking ship while wearing a stoic mask.
Sometimes the absolute most powerful thing you can do is invite someone in from the cold, share a blanket, and rewrite the rules of the game entirely.
Until next time.